7 p.m. My name is Rich Reynoso. I'm the co-chair of housing.
Juanita Ransel, co-chair of
Yep.
housing.
All right. Since it's a small group of us, I'm not gonna read the contact statement, just read it to yourselves. Meeting minutes, that's still on me. I am so sorry. I owe September, October, November, to be honest. Juanita, could you help me review them?
Yep.
Okay, please, because I'm falling behind here. I'm gonna probably do the short form for the minutes. I think it's just the promotions and things that passed, not blow by blow, like Hazel does for the full board minutes. Attendance. So far it's me, Juanita, for today. It's raining. We didn't get. Jeremy, did anyone reach out to you about being excused? Stacy's online.
No.
Good evening.
Okay, I see you, Stacy.
Good evening.
Okay, so you remote. The one I think is going to be absent. Edgar absent. Okay. Good. Up next is the update on the Fine Fair construction. We don't have an update per se. I think what we said last month was that the construction started seeing movement in construction on the Boston Road location for the Fine Fair. I don't know if anyone has seen anything. Dana Finch, have you seen any news or anything on that side of town?
No, but I haven't looked, but I thought that the remediation wasn't finished yet, according to the timeline that they put out quite a while back.
Yeah, agreed. But for some reason,
Soil and
all the construction that was there is like it's either happening or something's going on there.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
looks like they're moving things probably out,
Yeah.
probably digging the ground.
yeah, that might be the soil remediation or the soil
That-
testing, but the
Yeah.
Fine Fair is still open, right?
Yeah. No, that one's still open. Yeah, it's definitely still open.
Maybe related to this a little bit, you know, DOB has changed their site. They've switched over. And I've been finding it a little harder to find things, maybe because I'm just not used to the new format yet. But I wonder if we could check the status of the permits there.
Okay. Good idea. Can you drop the new website in the chat, Diana, when you get a chance?
I will look for it.
Yeah, thank you.
And also, I think I saw online somewhere it was like a posting for a community board tutorial on the new DOB
Okay.
website. And it wasn't for our community board. It was, I'm not sure what community board it was for.
But we should probably, if we,
But
we'll
there
try
seems to be something going on about, you
Yeah.
know, updating systems and a new way to look things up and a new way to present the information and
Yeah. We'll follow up after the meeting with our DOB contact to see if they can come next month to give us this tutorial. That would be great.
okay, great.
Yeah. They did last time, years ago, for the first website. Remember that? They should probably want to do it again.
Thank you.
Okay. Up next is Blondell Ave, and that one is open.
Yeah, second.
Open system December 2nd. So the shelter on Blondell Ave is now open. Just a FYI. That one we've been asking for updates for some time, and then we just realized when we were just told this week that it was open. Okay. So for the popular shelter site, no update as of yet. We reached out twice this week, so we're waiting to hear back on a updated timeline. That one's behind schedule. So we're gonna get back to folks as soon as we hear something in terms of that property. All right, no questions. I'm gonna move on. So The next topic is somewhat related to what we spoke about last month in terms of AMI and affordable housing. And, thank you, Diana. In that kind of realm of things, we've been talking to folks, and folks have been noticing buildings popping up in their neighborhoods with astronomical rents, sort of in a sense, how are these rents even in our zip? No one can afford these. They're not affordable, so they probably didn't use HPD financing. They're not on the website, but we've seen more and more of these pop up. So we did some research, and I'm going to share the article. And what's been going on? Let's see, hopefully it's this one. Is this it? No.
What else city was that?
Let's see. Okay, can you guys see my screen?
It's Kay Cardona. I can't see. All it says is search the web or type a URL.
Okay, so 1 second, let me share again.
Sure, I'm going to click back off in case anyone else wants to speak.
Okay, 1 second.
It says it's viewing BXCB11's applications.
Got it. Okay. Hold on. Unshare.
Maybe cut.
Oh, I know. I'm drawing a blank. How do I unstop? How do I stop sharing?
Open back completely. Open home.
There you
Got
go. Okay, sorry about that. Can you see it now? We're Stag Group.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
So this is what I wanted. Me and Juanita spoke about it earlier this month, and we said this would be a good topic to discuss. So we discovered that groups like the Stag Group, if you know Pelham Parkway by the big 911 center at the end of Pelham Parkway Pelham Parkway, it's the big square building. There's a property that it used to be a horse ranch, right? If you know that building. They're called the Stag Group, and the Stag Group they're just a real estate conglomerate. So what they've been doing is they've been converting affordable housing units, and they've been marking up the rental prices and then making those shelter housing. They've developed a loophole in the Bronx and other areas where they've converted units to affordable housing, quote unquote, and what they've done is then convert those housing units, jacked up the rental prices. I'm talking about $3,500 for a 1-bedroom, for example, and then made those available to homeless shelters. Because obviously we need, they've seen a demand for homeless shelters, and they know that the DHS would pay that rent. So this is the latest and greatest in terms of things that are going on in our neighborhood. So we're not only dealing with HPD and AMI limits that aren't affordable. Now we have folks like the Stag Group who are converting affordable housing units to shelter housing. I'll read it, we can read it together. I'll drop it in the chat. But a developer in the Bronx is facing questions after a tax break from the city for housing development, only to retool most of the project toward shelter beds. The Stag Group in this project, you'll see it's in the Gun Hill Road section. It's by the high school. Yeah, it's by Van there. The Stag Group is turning more than 90 units of its 134-unit project at 739 East Gun Hill Road in the borough's Williamsburg neighborhood into units for the homeless. And I'll click this link. Yeah, was meant to provide, and I'll drop this in the chat too. But this is now something that we need to. It's something that we need to look into. Any questions about that so far before I keep going?
It's Kay Cardona. Not so much a question as I've been active with housing for many, many years, different types of housing issues. I've been part of the anti-gentrification movement since 1979. I started like on the Lower East Side of Manhattan, Upper West Side, Long Island City, you name it, I've been active in it. When Stagg first came and said that he wanted to take that property where Rusty had his stable,
Yeah.
he came before Pelham Parkway Neighborhood Association and a couple of other groups that I was on the board of. Oh no, it's going to be luxury housing. My market is the hospitals. He wanted mostly like medical staff and other professionals. Once he built it, at first it was partially empty and we complained. And then all of a sudden, I was the one who brought it to Jeremy's attention many years ago, that because I work near there. So I would see individuals coming from Pelham Bay or getting off the 12 bus that stops right there and stuff, and they would have bags with them. And these individuals looked like they were down on their luck. So I knew something was up. So I contacted Jeremy and we looked into it, and I forgot which electeds we had. I contacted their offices too. And it turned out that he took certain units and he had to deal with the city, like HBD or whoever, or maybe the Department of Homeless Services or something. And
Mhm.
he was, most of the units that were occupied by either individuals or maybe families that, and basically it's studios and one bedrooms in that building. I had no problem with it necessarily, but it's just his level of dishonesty. And everywhere this man has been, Community Board 8 complains, any community board that he's built stuff in, you will see articles in Norwood News, the Bronx Times, AM New York, Metro, name a publication, City Limits, SI Live. And these community boards, anywhere where he's built something, people complain because he turns them, like you said, essentially into primarily sheltering the homeless, which we have to shelter people. We can't have people not sheltered. But the thing is, if you're going to have AMIs where they're looking for people with 70, 80,000 a year income, and they're going to be living in a building with people that haven't necessarily lived the same standard as they do, it just, how long are those, more affluent tenants going to stay? You're going to have a higher turnover. You're going to have people that don't stay in the neighborhood, people that don't connect with the community. It really turns off couples, that might want to, get married and have kids and stay. It's just is not good all around. I mean, I'm happy that somebody's housing the homeless, but the way he goes about things has always been very dishonest.
Yeah. So as you
Mhm.
can see here, they're receiving a property tax break through a state program that's supposed to help building owners to help. Obviously, it's the HPD loophole. So the issue that I think it's kind of on top of our mind is, we'll talk about Blondell and Popular because they came up to the board and they presented to the board. But then you
Mhm.
have a stag group go behind our back
hmm
and work it through a loophole. So we would never hear about how they're developing a homeless shelter, unless it's through the media. So it's interesting to see, see this play out in our neighborhoods.
It's systemic. I don't know if he builds outside of the Bronx, Manhattan, Brooklyn, whatever. All I know is his reputation here,
Yeah.
and I think um, how he hooked up with Adolfo Carrion, I have no idea, but it's just the combination of the two of them is just, it's just not really working for
No, yeah.
our hardworking, family, even single adults. I mean, we deserve to be treated with a different level of respect than we're actually getting. Why can't this man just be honest and say, look, I want to build this thing and I'm eventually, because I want to make money, going to take in, people from shelters. I'm going to make deals with the city or whoever it is. Why can't he just be honest about it so people have a chance to confront him, or he's held accountable on some level,
I think the first step is obviously having these conversations on these community board meetings. For example, in this chart, paragraph right here, they would pay up to $3,666 for a unit. That's
hmm
because they're waiting on the shelter contracts from the DHS. you know, that's astronomical for someone who's living in our neighborhoods. So I think when we have these conversations, we need to amplify what's going on, because I think they've been going under the radar for so long that they get away with it. But obviously, you know, the more we talk about it, the more we bring this up. We should bring this up at the full board meeting since we'll have electeds there,
Yeah, it's a great idea.
right?
The other thing that
Just-
scares me too about this is if the city or whoever is willing to pay this amount for individual, or let's say a mom with kids or a dad with kids, an extended family, where does that leave the voucher program? Because people have vouchers that they can't use. They're still getting discriminated against. The level of apartments that are available through the vouchers is limited, and the voucher amounts do not match these rents.
No, they don't.
Right.
Yeah, that's yeah, and that's what we talked about last, I think.
Right,
month.
so if there's something we can do to combat that, I think that voucher holders should also be prioritized.
Yeah, so I think we should definitely bring this up at the full board meeting. It's something that we're being priced out by HPD. We're being priced out by the market rent developers.
yeah.
Now we're getting folks coming, say they're making affordable housing, but then they're sometimes going under the radar and making it for homeless shelters. I'm gonna stop sharing. I saw comments. If you guys want to say it a lot, we can open up to the floor. Cynthia,
Hi, Rich. This
yes.
is Christine, and
Hi,
I had my
Christine.
hand up. I guess you missed that. But anyway, there's a lot of things to really discuss about these kinds of projects when they happen. And, you know, one of the discussions that I think that we need to be having and learning about is actually how the funding happens, right? So if you look at the story, the way that they can get some of this funding, these tax incentives, is to at least lease 30% of the apartments, right? And that is the minimum, I think, in this case. And then, you know, of course, you know, we're talking about shelters, which is really supposed to be temporary, right? And we want to be able to house people as quickly as possible, but we have a problem because there is a shortage of affordable housing, right? So at the moment, this is what exists, right? And so it's really important to have many conversations here. It's so complicated and nuanced. It's not just this on the surface. There's other things because, you know, for a long time we have like ignored some of those other things that kind of lead or led us to these moments that we're having now, that we're dealing with now. So it would be nice to see, and Rich, you know, that when I was on the committee, we talked often about, you know, doing these kinds of committee meetings where people are actually learning these things, right? And bringing in people and discussing these things, you know, in bits and pieces, because it's so complicated that I think that people get easily lost, right? So it's important, I think, in my opinion, that we start doing that, because there's so much happening, right, that goes under the radar of CB11. There's a lot of interactive maps that the New York City Department of Building has that one could go to see exactly what is going on in our district. There is a lot happening, even on Boston Road, right? There's another development that's going on in Boston Road. There's a lot of things that we should be concerned with, you know, when we're talking about development. Outside of, you know, the affordability, also who is doing this work? Are they doing safe construction in our communities, right? Are the members of our community being exposed to dangerous job sites, right? Where this construction development is happening. So there's a lot of conversations. It's hard to know where to begin, honestly. But I'd like to see meetings where, you know, we're bringing in people who can explain, like HPD, how these tax programs work. And maybe we need to start discussing, now that we know that all of this development is coming to our neighborhood, how do we protect our community against displacement and things of that nature, because the development is coming. But now what?
Yeah.
So we can probably invite HPD.
Yeah, no, I thank you, Christine, for those points. That's super helpful. I think, yeah, bringing the HPD, I would love to get a developer in and just,
I know we had one before, but he's mentioned, so I was recently at the tenants.
Okay, you wanna talk
resource
about-
fair,
Okay.
and I picked up some information for, like, for instance, New York City Housing Connect. But when you look at New York City Housing Connect, a lot of the developments that's being built in our neighborhood are not on here. So I remember when we had the
Yeah.
HPD representative, he mentioned a lot of the buildings that were coming up. I think there was one on Mace and White Plains Road that wasn't a part of New York City Housing Connect. So I think a lot of the buildings right now are not on the New York City Housing Connect.
Yeah, so that, and then if Ted haunts my dreams sometimes, but Ted will say, if they're not getting financing from HPD, it won't be on the website, right? That's what he says all the time, and it's true. So I think if we could get, I think we're gonna try to get next month to get HPD and a developer in, so we can just talk about, like Christine said, what is the process like? Why are the rents so wildly different from building to building? And then, have them explain it themselves instead of us hunting for it.
And then who makes the decision for it to be a shelter?
Oh, that's the next thing. It's we could probably hopefully get DHS as well to see how are their needs being met. Obviously, there's a process where they come to us and Blondell and Popular, but I mean, are there shelters being built that we don't know about? Diana?
The things that I really, really would like to know is that there is like a minimum amount that a developer will have to rent the building for in order to break even, make a profit. And what is that amount? Have the costs gone up so much now that you can't build a building with a studio apartment renting for less than 2,000 a month? It's just not financially feasible. Like, is that the situation? And is there a big difference between new buildings and older buildings? So many of the people in our neighborhood come to BPECA all the time with complaints about the conditions in their buildings, in their older buildings. And is it true actually that the landlords are not receiving enough income from the rents to maintain the buildings the way they should be? I would just really like to know what are the numbers?
Yeah.
What do you really need to rent an apartment now for in order to break even or make a profit?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we should definitely try to get someone on the financing side. I know we talked about this a bunch, but if folks know anyone in that realm, I'm going to try to hit up our contacts, go through Jeremy as well to see what, can they plot out financing and what for Section 8 housing, what is the minimum they need to do to break even? To your point, Danny, you're right. Is it they're not investing in the building because if they do, they're going to be in the red? Are they not making money and that's why they're skimping out on repairs? I think the answer is going to be yes, but I would love to hear from them. Obviously, property taxes go up every year, but rents don't go up. So I'm sure, to your point, we need to get someone in who could kind of tell us exactly what it is that they're facing. Because it seems that everyone has a problem, right? The homeless have a problem. The middle-aged worker has a problem. The person who can't afford to pay rent has a problem, and also the developer has a problem, right? I mean, everyone's going to say, "What about me?" And that's the biggest problem in New York City. Everyone's crying, not crying, but everyone's has issues, and I get it. So
Even homeowners
Right.
are having problems.
It got to the point where around the BPECA area, the two maintenance issues that people really seem to have being trouble with are elevators and roof. And both the roofs and the elevators seem to be aging out so many buildings that were built like around the 1960s or before, and the elevators have just reached the end of their useful life. And it's a lot of money to replace
Yeah.
an elevator, and maybe the city needs more programs that will subsidize some of these maintenance issues that are starting to really come up now.
Agreed. So I think now for next month, we'll try to get someone live. I mean, I will bring in Ted just to give us a refresher if we need to, but I would love to get a developer in. I'll ask Ted if he knows, I'm sure he does know any developers. So it could just be a friendly conversation. We want to just understand what are the economic indicators that drive a development from existing? Like what like you said, Diana, what is it that makes it profitable? And have those costs increase so much, for example, because of inflation? We'll let them talk about it.
Hi, it's Kay Cardona. May I speak for a
Yeah,
second?
go ahead. Yep.
Okay, here's things, because I'm very active. I'm a member of the Met Council on Housing and Housing Justice for All and stuff. And here's like, from attending meetings and going to rallies and all kinds of stuff, here's something that I would love to see happen. I would love to see either the larger owners or their LLCs or their managers, like the managing agents, actually come to community meetings or publish articles stating what exactly are their costs and break everything down, like in a formula, so we can see for ourselves as tenants, what exactly it is it costs to run each property, or if it's a group of like double buildings, whatever, that they outlay their costs and stuff to us, because no two buildings are going to have the same exact amount of expenses, why they're claiming they're not making a profit, and what makes them think they're entitled to make a profit every year. The market goes up and down, the economy changes, things happen. And especially in the older buildings, we have buildings here from the 1920s and up in the Pelham Parkway area and stuff. So you have buildings that are brand new, you have buildings from 1920 something. It's just, I understand that the buildings have different costs, but all they do is complain. They don't publish anything, or they don't come out publicly and say, listen, these are our operating costs, and this is why we're not cutting a profit, or this is why, we're leaning towards bankruptcy, because, X amount of tenants, the majority of tenants are not paying their rent, or the taxes have gone up, or what, they're not being clear or forthcoming on things. I would love to see a law or something in place where they have to publish something every year, not only for their tenants, but for the general public to see. Or maybe they should be audited in some way, because they get money left and right, the tax breaks and loans and all different kinds of things, and nobody's holding them accountable for anything. So something I would love to see happen is they have to come out with a report, a statement, something every year outlining, okay, this is why we didn't make a profit this year, or this is how we made it a profit the year before. Our costs changed, our operational costs changed because, but they don't do that. I mean, we give our money every month and we don't really know where it goes. I'm eternally grateful for having a roof over my head, but I'd kind of like an explanation as to where my money goes. I just think it's reasonable.
You know what's funny? You were saying that, and I just remembered. If you remember that recent law that was published for healthcare companies, and when you got surgery, they would break down the cost.
Yeah.
You're right, Kate. That's a great idea. Why not have landlords? I mean, obviously, we're not legislators here, but we should let folks know. We should push for something like this. Have folks kind of on a yearly basis. I know co-ops do that. They have an annual report. But much like they passed legislation to break down healthcare costs, when you got your surgeries, they take in tight. Hey, this cost that. This went to insurance. This came out of pocket. These types of things should be, if you're getting a government program or vouchers or some sort from the government, you should publish why you're spending what you're spending in terms of gas, oil, et cetera, et cetera. That's a good idea.
Thank you.
I'm gonna invite this gentleman to our meeting next, I think it was this, Chrome. Right? Let's see. Yeah, okay. I'm gonna invite this gentleman. He used to be on the Assemblyman. He used to be in the Assembly. His name is Kenny Burgos. So Kenny Burgos, he resigned from Assembly to become a CEO of a newly launched New York Apartment Association. So he is now sort of representing landlords in New York City. I'm gonna invite him to our meeting next month, or if not the meeting after, just so he can tell us from a tenant, from a landlord side of things, why things are costing the way they do. If you follow him, again, Kenny Burgos, on, I think, Instagram, he has a good kind of, I'll send to you after this. He has a good explainer as to why things are costing more. And I'll invite him to talk to us next month, or if not, if he doesn't come next month, the month after, so he can kind of tell us what the landlords are seeing from their end. And I'll put this in the chat as well. So I think he could be a good resource. Any other comments before we move on? Very good.
Diane, you had your hand up?
No, sorry, that,
No worries, okay.
take it down.
Christine?
I think yeah. So, Juanita, you want to talk about the tenant, the tenant
Okay,
there?
so right, so I went to the tenant fair
Where
at
was
the
that
Bronx
again?
House.
Oh, yes.
Last Thursday. And it wasn't, well, when I got there, it was too many people, but I did pick up the New York City Housing Connect. Like we just talked about, a lot of these new apartments that are going up aren't on there, but New York City Housing Connect is supposed to be also affordable for, depending on your income and depending on your family size. So I did get the link for that. And we could put that in the chat as well, the website.
Yeah. So she's referring to this tenants resource fair. So we didn't have our meeting last Thursday because
I went,
Juanita went to this resource fair in Bronx House. So was it good?
yeah, I found a lot of stuff, but New York City Housing Connect, I did find also for homeowners. So for instance, like it's raining, pouring out today, and some houses get flooded, their basements, they have a website that you can actually report this damage to, and they're supposed to do like a flood insurance claim. So we can also drop that website inside the chat. I thought that was pretty interesting. I had run back a bunch of brochures as well. So there's an article here, sorry,
It's okay.
that I did, being that we just was talking about rent stabilization and rent control. There's an article here, like a fact sheet. And I left it here, and I got this from one of the tables as well. And I thought this was pretty interesting. It almost goes along with exactly what we're talking about. How is it, you know, the expenses? How is the expenses developed and all those things? So, and it talks about rent control. And yeah, so I left some of these here as well.
Okay. It's like a 101.
Right, 101 fact sheets.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll stop sharing. Yeah. Oh, okay. Moving on, I think that's all for our agenda. I'm gonna open up to the gallery session. If anyone wants to talk, chat, say anything, feel free. So again, we're gonna try to get these guests for next month. But open to more suggestions. Go ahead, Diana.
Yes, for the Blondell shelter, I just wanted to mention that we connected with this group called Open Hearts, that one of the things they do is that they provide welcome kits and welcoming events for shelters and supportive housing as it's opening up. And they're committed to working with us for the Blondell shelter. They have a form where they raise funds and purchase like toiletries, socks, and underwear, and then get volunteers from the community to spend a couple of hours putting everything together into the welcome kits, and then deliver them to the shelter. And they'd like to do this with us in January or February. And I think we have a place to do it. We have to just figure out a date. Because they said that, and they know the group that's running Blondell, they've worked with them in the past. And they said that the shelters populate kind of slowly, that they won't be at full capacity probably until sometime in February. So when we have, the further details and a date for the session where we'll put the welcome kits together, we'll announce that. And, we'll get as many people from throughout the entire community to participate. I
Yeah.
think it's a nice thing.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, let us,
Yeah.
whoever you see, if you see me, let me know. If you see Jeremy, let him know once you get a date. Should we just check your Facebook?
I'll tell Jeremy, I'd mentioned it to Cynthia already.
Okay,
And Christine is very involved and supportive.
okay.
And we'll
Great.
just reach out to a lot of different, whoever wants to come for a few hours and put this together. And they also are very familiar with the community advisory boards. And they thought that the community advisory board for Blondell probably had not been formed yet. And that usually it is neighbors, close neighbors who are very concerned about keeping an eye on things, who join the community advisory boards.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. All right, so let us know when you hear of
But we would,
something.
we would want to ask the community advisory board if they would like to participate as well. But
Is
I
it-
don't
is
know
it-
that they exist yet.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you. Christine?
I just wanted to say I'm disappointed again, to see that there isn't a quorum. This has become, the usual, right? The norm, the new norm for our committees. And really wanted to express, right, or emphasize why I feel it's necessary for some of these committees to merge. And I've said this for a long time. It's fallen on deaf ears. I hope that you guys can discuss it again, but I really think that housing and land use should be one committee at this point.
Thank you. Anyone else?
It's Kay Cardona. One last thing.
Yep.
The property where the equestrian is, right next to the equestrian, 1682 Stillwell. It looks like they're pretty much finished with the construction, and they still, I don't know if they've been forthcoming with anyone on the board as to what they actually intend to do with that
Yeah,
property.
we never
Because
found that one out. That one, remember, that one's been for years, right?
It's been at least 3 years. Some people from, I don't know if it was Christine or somebody might have been one of the people that formed a group, citizens or something. There was a online group at one point about 1682 Stillwell, but I don't know if they still exist. But they've never been forthcoming. The last thing I heard is that they want to make a hotel out of it. Meanwhile, you have the Marriott right down the street.
On the
And
block,
stuff,
yeah.
and it's such a small, oddly shaped building. There is some parking, I think.
Underneath,
like,
there is definitely, I've seen it.
Right. So at least if people come, they're not going to be coming on scooters. If they're coming from the airport or let's say the Yankees are in the playoffs or something and they want to stay at that hotel. They're more than likely going to drive or Uber or something. It's, But they just haven't been forthcoming as to what that property is actually going to be used for.
Can I
And
just
so-
jump in
so-
here for a second, Rich, if you don't mind?
Go for it.
So Kay, I think you do recall that we had this discussion about
Yes, yes.
over a year ago, right? And
Yeah,
we did reach out to the developers when I was on the committee, and they never did reach out to us. We did talk to John about it. We do know these developers have a history and a portfolio of building hotels and then converting them into homeless shelters.
yeah, okay.
So I don't know if they ever followed up with John where they're at with that, but I would, and I think we suggested this to you before, to reach out to John Zaccaro's office.
Oh, shoot, yeah, I haven't
Yeah.
spoken to them in quite
Well-
some time. So
well,
at that
well,
time, they didn't really know.
What we'll do is when.
Yeah,
we'll-
can I add just a little on that?
Go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I think the hotel designation came from the way they describe on the permit in the old DOB, the way they describe the design of the structure. Because we did have a meeting with John Zaccaro after he had reached out to them, and was this like a year or so ago or more?
Yeah, it had to be at
Um,
least.
And he said that it was going to be some kind of supportive housing for people that were in some kind of treatment program. And that it did fit with their portfolio, that they had built places like these in the past. But that it was like dormitory style, hotel style. I think that's where the hotel comes from, but it's not going to be a hotel like where travelers can go and.
Oh,
Well,
I
that's
see.
not
No.
been the history, right? The history has been, they do, right. If you look at the blueprints, it could easily be converted from a hotel to, yes, a shelter system.
Right, and
It's
it
a-
had like
a support system.
a communal eating area.
Correct.
It had dorm style.
So let's do this. I mean, we'll have Jeremy reach out to John and we'll get an update at the full board when their rep is at the meeting. So we'll say, hey, can you get us an update by the full board meeting? That way everyone hears an update, and that's in a week or so. So, I mean, yeah, let's do that. Right? Let's ask him in person, wherever his rep is. So I'll follow up. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, the city of yes. So the city of yes passed. With a love it or hate it, it passed. It passed very modified. We're gonna send around the text. It's really long. So we'll pass her. I don't. If we could get Jeremy, if you're on, could you put the text in the chat if possible? If not, we'll try to find it and put it in the chat. But city of yes passed. Passed the caveats. We'll probably try to get what does this mean for us coming in the next month or so. I think that would be a useful exercise for everyone in the community. But just to let everyone know, I think most folks know, I think that CWS for housing passed. Okay. All right. I'm gonna go. We have no motions. We don't have quorum. Old business. I don't think we have any, right? New business. And this is going off of what Christine was saying. And we had a meeting yesterday with the bylaws committee. And we're going to actively look to merge committees. So I think we have leadership on Monday. I just want everyone to know. We're going to pitch to merge land use and housing. We're just going to try to do it on Monday. We'll talk about it then. But we're gonna take this into overdrive because I think we keep talking about merging. I think we're just gonna merge. And we'll need to present it at leadership, vote on it, and then vote on it again at full board. Land use folks are okay with it. Housing, I think we're fine with it, right?
Yeah.
We're good. Land use hasn't met in months. We meet every month. We never have quorum. It's just a weird thing. So I think this is an easy win for the board, land use and housing. There are other easy wins that I think what the chair is gonna talk about, in the next couple weeks. But so on Monday, we're gonna try to merge land use and housing. All right? Any last comments, question before we end the session?
No, just thank you so much and have a great evening and have a great week.
Okie dokie. All right, thank you, everyone. Yep, our meeting adjourned at 7:52 PM. Have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Juanita. Thank
everyone.
you, Rich.
Good night.